Hello again, YouTube. Here we are in my mess of a garden that has gotten away from me, and as you can see, is starting to die off. What we're doing today is we're going to do a jalapeno and honey ferment, as well as a garlic honey ferment. I have a gallon or 2 gallons or so of honey from my bees that I think may crystallize soon if I don't do something with it. So I'm going to go ahead and ferment that. It has great health benefits. I wouldn't be able to quote the exact reasons why, but the taste is off the charts and it never goes bad. So it's a good way to use honey if you don't want it to crystallize. So a couple things I want to show you regarding the garden is I had great success with raising the rows up from the walking paths, which have gotten completely away from me. As you can see over here, I've been trying to keep up on mulch and layering mulch to keep the weeds down, but as you can see, it's gotten away from me. I'm working with a wheelbarrow. I need a tractor. That's in the future. Those things are not cheap. But I mixed my own soil and put it on top of the native dirt and raised the rows up 8 or 10 inches or so. They've since kind of flattened out. But the plants in the raised rows did very well. The only thing I would do different is with the tomatoes. Maybe not so much the peppers, but the tomatoes, I was able to plant early because of these raised rows. In the springtime, it rains too much and you can't plant too early. The plants struggle. The raised rows help tremendously. What I would do differently is I would succession sow. As you can see over here, I planted cucumbers directly in the ground without raising it up, and they are pathetic looking. They did not do well at all. I planted a lot of them, so they're still producing, but they needed to be raised up off the ground as well. Anyways, what we're here for is to get some jalapenos. While we're here at the jalapeno patch, there's a couple of other types of peppers mixed in. I sprinkled basil seeds. I saved the flowering heads from my basil last year and just crunched them up on this row. And as you can see, I also mixed in marigold seeds. As you can see, that worked very well. And it also kept the tomato hornworm off of my peppers, which I had a problem with last year. And I have an unlimited amount of basil, obviously. But I have not had to weed this at all. I come through and I chop down the marigolds, I chop down the basil so that the peppers can get some light, but that has worked really well. All right, so we've got a peck. We need some jalapenos. And we'll go ahead and get this video started. The honey ferments just taste amazing. A marinade, a dipping sauce, or just to take a spoonful of every day for health benefits and just for the taste. And if you're getting your honey from a local source, you know that they're not feeding them a bunch of sugar, feeding you a bunch of sugar, and it's actually a nectar source. you're growing your own jalapenos or getting them from somebody you know that's growing them in an organic fashion, how does it get any better than that? So, not sure how many we're gonna come up with here. We're approaching September. If I'm not mistaken, I should get peppers into October here in Western PA. I may have to trim any flowers off sometime in mid-September to get the remaining fruits to bulk up, maybe change color. So that I can harvest them. I like when the jalapenos get a little black on them, or get stretch marks, or turn red. I like the diversity. I don't have a whole lot of that. They were hidden underneath of the marigolds for quite some time while I got buried trying to keep up with the tomatoes, which I still kind of have a problem with. They're pushing out the last of their ripe fruit, and I'm gonna have to deal with that. So with that said, I've made piles of salsa this year. I have pasta sauce from last year. I'd love suggestions on what to do with an overabundance of tomatoes, and maybe I'll do a video on that. Let me know in the comments. Thank you. Hi everybody, we're back inside. Not a huge jalapeno harvest. We'll see what that amounts to for the ferment. This is what's left of my garlic. After this, I'll be buying garlic. I'm not gonna peel all of this garlic and trim and rinse all of these peppers on the video. That'll take forever. So we will be back when I'm finished. All right, YouTube, we're back. I peeled all the garlic, which is a painful process, and led me to want to give you a little hint, a secret, if you will. If you grow your own garlic, when you harvest it, when you pull it out of the ground and it's green and it's uncured, it peels extremely easily. So if you were to do something like this where you need a lot of garlic, the best time to do it is when you pull the garlic out of the ground. It'll peel so much easier. That was a relatively painful process. Now, we could chop these garlics if we want. I've always done the fermentation with whole garlic. Both of these ferments are good for an endless amount of years. The flavor changes with the months and years. The older it gets, the flavor changes. The ferment is ready to use probably in 2 to 3 weeks. You could start using it. The flavor changes and the flavor gets better the older it gets, in my opinion. The jalapenos, I hadn't finished slicing yet. We're going about 3/8 to a 1/2 inch on the jalapeno slices. It's probably a good idea to wear gloves. It can burn your fingers. It doesn't seem to bother me, so I don't. So while I'm slicing these last few jalapenos, I'd like to ask you again to like, subscribe, and even share these videos. This is a brand new channel. I just started, and every little bit helps. There's a lot of projects that I want to try to accomplish on this property. I'm a single income. I'm an electrician by trade, and it's difficult to try to do all these things on only one income. It seems to I can pay the bills, I can get by, but all the extras, not so much. So I'm trying YouTube, hoping that maybe that can become profitable and can lead me to a situation where I can start and finish a lot of these projects that I want to undertake. I got everything on my mind, from building a greenhouse to an artesian kitchen outside, processing kitchen for venison and gardens, so on and so forth. So I really appreciate any help I can get, and hitting the like button, hitting subscribe, sharing with anybody that you think may be interested goes a very long way. This is the last jalapeno. These are also my last 2-quart jars. We're down to pints after that. So I'm not sure if all the jalapenos fit in 1-quart jar. There's a goner. So ratios for this ferment really don't matter. It's going to be good whether you put 6 jalapenos in it or 60. It's honestly something that you're going to have to play with. I like to try to fill the jar like that, with whatever I'll be fermenting. We're so close to the end, I'm going to stuff a few more extra that I normally wouldn't. But there wasn't enough for another jar. So there's our jalapenos. They will shrink when they start to ferment in the honey. Now on to the garlic. So about a 1/2 quart of garlic. I wouldn't be afraid to take it all the way to the top. It will be good regardless of what you do. Like I said, the ratios don't quite matter as much. You'll see when you have the finished product. It's amazing regardless. I wouldn't do 2 or 3 cloves and fill a whole quart I would tend to want to go with a pint-sized jar or something like that if you're going to go 2, 3, 4, 5 cloves. But a half full jar will be plenty good. A full jar will be plenty good. There's a lot of room for, I don't want to say error. There's a lot of room for interpretation. I don't know. In these recipes. This is an extremely easy ferment. If you're just getting into fermenting, it doesn't get any easier than this, and I'm going to show you. We're going to go get some honey. We're going to fill these jars, and I'll show you some ferments that I've started a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, and we'll finish these ferments. Okay, here we are. We got a bucket of honey with roughly 1 gallon left in it. I'm concerned about this honey starting to crystallize, so I want to use it for ferments. Honey never goes bad, but I don't want it to crystallize in my buckets. I'd rather use it up, give the bucket to the bees, let them clean it out. I'll finish cleaning it out, and then I'll use it for next year's honey harvest. While we're here, I'd just like to show you a couple of things. This is a honey garlic ferment that I started maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And as you can see, the honey is very liquidy. That's how you know the fermentation has been underway. Jalapeños, same thing. Very liquidy. Here's a couple more stages of the Heinz Copycat Pickle. This I started yesterday. As you can see, the pickles are still very cucumberish. They look just like cucumbers. Here's one that's just about done. As you can see, it's cloudy. The cucumbers have changed color. They're making the transition from half sour to full sour. Here's another not quite as far along. And some sauerkraut. I started when my first cabbages got ripe in the early summer. It's probably about ready to be either canned up or jarred up and put in the fridge. I've typically always put it in the fridge because I like the probiotics and leaving it raw. I might tinker with canning it some. And while we're here, what the hell? Concord grape vinegar. We will see. My first time doing it. All right, so time to fill the jars with honey. As you can see, the honey is a lot thicker than what you saw in the jars that have been fermenting for near a month. I might actually have to, yeah. I'll have to fill them in stages, especially the jalapenos, since the jar's full. So honey from my bees, garlic from my garden, jalapeños from my garden. Doesn't get any better than that. The honey I get from my bees has a very unique flavor that I've never had with anybody else's honey. There's there's a lot of tupelo in this area. It's a very swampy area. That's why I have trouble with the garden and I have to raise the beds. It holds water a lot, so there's a lot of black tupelo in the area, and the honey is just amazing. And I have to wonder if that's it. One of these days I will send a sample in and get the professionals to tell me where my honey is coming from. So this process looks like it's going to take a while. So I'm not going to keep you the whole time while we wait for honey to drip down slowly around the jalapenos. Instead, this fermentation cannot be any easier. You don't need airlocks, you don't need special jars, just a jar and a lid. You don't even necessarily need a lid. You could use a piece of cheesecloth, paper towel, and a rubber band, whatever you want. If you were to use something like that porous on top, you would either want to take it off and stir it up from time to time. But in this situation with the lid, what you do is the first week of fermentation is the most crucial to keep it from going bad. So you put the garlic and the honey together. The honey's still thick. The garlic will float to the top. And what you don't want is for mold to grow in the garlic while it's sitting there exposed to air. So you put the jar somewhere that you frequent, in your kitchen, somewhere that you're going to be often, and you leave the lid cracked loose so that pressure doesn't build up, blow off the top, or even explode the jar. Leave the lid cracked. When you go into the kitchen to make a snack, grab a snack, make dinner, whatever, just take a second, tighten down the lid, turn it upside down. It'll be a much slower process with a fresh ferment. It'll turn it upside down, turn it right back up, side up, and then crack the lid again, and then set it back where you have it. That's all you got to do. You do that for about the first week, and then you can slow the process. You'll see the honey start to get thinner. You know that the fermentation is underway. You're starting to be out of the risk of mold, and every now and then you could give it a stir, give it a shake. At some point, the garlic, the jalapenos, they become completely anaerobic, I guess, as well. And it could even sit untouched for months and never develop any problems. So the first week is crucial. After that, just every time you think about it, in an ideal world, you're taking a spoonful every day. You're making a lot of these ferments for your health because they have amazing health benefits, as well as using them for marinades and things of that nature. I've had honey garlic ferments, honey jalapeno ferments that I've had for years. The flavor just keeps getting better and better. But in an ideal world, they don't last for years. You're using it constantly because it's so good for your health. I think that might be the end of our video today. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends. I can't tell you how much that helps. Thank you.